Emily Turner casually linked her arm with mine as she picked through clothes on the store rack.
Just a few days ago, I spent the night with Alexander Collins.
Her nonchalant tone nearly gave my fragile heart a shock. Emily Turner, my friend. Alexander Collins, my boss's boss, the head honcho. I forced myself to stay calm, my mind replaying the scene from last weekend when she got utterly tipsy at our company's celebration party and ended up at Alexander Collins' table. It suddenly all made sense. Emily Turner, who neither worked at our company nor ever got tipsy at social gatherings, had even texted me coherently afterward, telling me not to wait for her as she had her own plans. That entire evening, I had spent my time either hiding behind the crowd to toast the big bosses or sitting in a corner, stuffing myself with food until my belt felt tight. Now, Emily Turner was picking clothes like they were cabbages, throwing a heap of them onto the counter. The sound of the POS machine printing receipts was oddly satisfying.
Alexander Collins' card. Might as well use it.
Thinking back, I realized she had shown interest in Alexander Collins the first time I showed her photos from our company's annual party. During that period, she often asked about my work and even researched Alexander Collins online, an Ivy League graduate, a workaholic, with a clean personal history, a rare gem among successful people. As an assistant to his assistant, I barely had any direct contact with him. Yet, in just one celebratory event where friends and family were invited, she had managed to win him over. That's Emily Turner's unique charm. She was a top-tier social strategist, a master at navigating relationships. As we walked out of the mall with our bags, she suddenly stopped. Following her gaze, I saw a giant LED screen outside the mall broadcasting a live stream of our company's new women's fashion launch. The camera panned over the backstage area, and Alexander Collins briefly appeared. He was facing away from the camera, bending slightly to plant a gentle kiss on the prominent shoulder blades of a model. The model was Sophia Brooks, Alexander Collins' publicly acknowledged girlfriend. Her posture was always impeccable, exuding elegance and nobility, leaving a deep impression on me.
A woman like that must be very proud.
She stared at the screen, her grip on my arm trembling slightly. Her pupils contracted with excitement, her lips curling into a malicious smile, and her eyes gleaming with the thrill of the hunt.
They won't be a good match.
I sighed. This was Emily Turner. Did she truly like Alexander Collins? Probably not. She was addicted to the thrill of the chase, to proving her allure by outshining others. She had always been like this, teaching me what it meant to be a top-tier social strategist, someone who could lower themselves to please others but ultimately did it to please themselves. In truth, my initial intention in showing her Alexander Collins was not entirely pure. If her attention was entirely on someone else, I would be safe, right? After careful consideration, I decided to seize the moment and confess. Actually, I'm in a relationship and planning to get married this year.
What? Who is it? When did you start dating? Why didn't I know?
Seeing my sheepish smile, she quickly understood, narrowing her eyes and gritting her teeth.
Well, you deliberately kept it from me. You've got some nerve.
Emily Turner snorted, then swiftly reached out to tickle my side.
No excuses. My birthday is next month. Bring him along. Big sister Emily will give him a thorough check.
I squealed, unable to resist her tickling, and nodded in agreement. Only then did she let me go, still huffing. As Emily Turner's birthday approached, I curled up on the sofa, biting my nails while choosing a gift for her. Lately, I've been picking out gifts for work during the day, and now I had to continue doing it at home for her. It was quite overwhelming. Just then, my phone buzzed with a message.
Your package has been refused and is being returned.
This was probably the 7th consecutive rejection. Jewelry, flowers, bags, shoes, I've tried everything, but nothing worked. I took a screenshot of the message and sent it to Assistant Zhang, then glanced at David Mitchell. He was sitting at the dining table, fully engrossed in his work at the law firm. He had been working hard and diligently on his own in the city. I looked at my phone, then at him. After repeating this action several times, he closed his laptop and walked over to sit beside me, amused.
Just say it.
I have a good friend I want you to meet.
I know, it's Emily Turner, right?
He adjusted his position and rested his head on mine, speaking with a smile.
It's about time. You mention her so often that I'm curious.
With that, he wrapped his arm around my waist, and we snuggled on the sofa to watch TV. I always liked this position, and we often did this. An entertainment news segment was playing on TV. After the red carpet event of the Star Awards, a group of reporters surrounded Sophia Brooks, thrusting dozens of microphones at her, asking about her thoughts on her boyfriend being spotted in a compromising situation with someone outside the industry in an underground parking lot. On the screen, she wore a backless sheer dress, the cold outdoor wind blowing her delicate bangs against her face. Amidst the sea of down jackets, she looked somewhat vulnerable. The news even included footage taken by paparazzi from a distance, the shaky and blurry video making it hard to see clearly. But even in such low-quality footage, I could instantly recognize Emily Turner. She had a slightly fuller figure, and when she wore stockings, the tops of her thighs would have a slight, enticing bulge. I couldn't help but recall what she said to me that day after we parted ways from shopping.
Even if the guy is a saint, Sophia Brooks' figure might be too cold for him, let alone her personality.
She had a faint smile on her face.
Prime beef is delicious, but the thrill comes from something more accessible.
I couldn't describe my shock. Even though I always knew she was a genius in relationships, easily captivating someone like Alexander Collins, who seemed unattainable to ordinary girls. Those indescribable nuances between men and women came naturally to her. If it were me, I might never understand them in this lifetime. Moreover, she was ambitious, determined, and willing to go all out. My phone buzzed again, this time with a reply from Assistant Zhang. My eyes stayed glued to the TV, waiting for more, feeling a bit anxious. After a brief silence, Sophia Brooks, with a dark expression and a cold voice, said she wasn't aware of the details and that they had already broken up. She then hurried away, leaving behind a straight, proud, yet slightly lonely figure on the screen. It wasn't until the footage switched to other celebrities that I glanced at my phone. The message was short, just one line, just confirmed with Mr. Chen, no need to send anything anymore. I was stunned. This battle seemed to have ended before it even began, with a clear winner. It was truly astonishing. Emily Turner, oh Emily Turner. She could easily stir the softest corners of men's hearts. This victory came too easily, and it's no wonder she never stopped her pursuits all these years. David's steady breathing brushed over my head. He had closed his eyes and was dozing off bit by bit. I quietly shifted a little, my gaze sweeping over his smooth forehead, straight nose, rosy lips, and finally resting on the hollow of his collarbone. I couldn't deny that David was successful and handsome. Although he couldn't compare to Alexander Collins, he was still an excellent catch. Maybe, influenced by Emily Turner, I had picked up a few tricks and, with some luck, managed to win him over. It's important to know one's limits. David was probably the best I could reach by standing on tiptoe. But was it really a good idea to let them meet? Would things really go as I expected? I couldn't help but feel anxious. But no one could give me an answer. I could only shift my body slightly, suppress my unease, and bury my head deeply into David's warm embrace. Emily Turner chose a very tasteful Cantonese restaurant for her birthday dinner. Before that, I started intentionally switching all of David Mitchell's daily products and perfumes to match mine. Emily Turner had taught me this trick back in school.
You know the saying, the way to a man's heart is through his stomach? It's not entirely accurate. To make a man love you for a long time, you need to make all his senses accustomed to you. Taste, sight, hearing, smell, all of them can be influenced.
So before the birthday dinner, I repeatedly and strongly suggested that she bring her boyfriend along too, under the pretext of worrying that David Mitchell might feel awkward as the only guy. But the real reason, which she and I both understood, was that I wanted an extra layer of security. Since childhood, I had always been inferior to her, not as pretty, not as smart. She only had me as a female friend because I posed no threat, always playing the role of a supportive sidekick. In reality, she didn't need female friends. The thrill of conquering men was enough to make her ecstatic. However, I didn't expect Alexander Collins to actually come to the dinner. He arrived a bit early after picking up Emily Turner, politely standing up to shake hands with both me and David Mitchell.
Nice to meet you.
His hand was dry and firm. Emily Turner barely touched David Mitchell's fingertips before letting go, greeting him with a smile.
I've heard so much about you. We're practically family.
While they exchanged pleasantries, I sneaked a glance at Alexander Collins. It was a peculiar feeling. Before this, I had only seen him from afar during company meetings. Today, he was wearing a casual hoodie and light blue jeans, his hair no longer meticulously styled but softly hanging over his forehead, looking like an ordinary handsome young man. He was so close to me now, something I could never have imagined before. Our ability to dine at the same table, transcending the usual superior-subordinate relationship, was all thanks to Emily Turner. Alexander Collins graciously poured water for everyone and handed the menu to Emily Turner to order. I thought Emily Turner must have noticed the matching scent between David Mitchell and me. After taking the menu, she hid her face behind it, winking at me teasingly and mouthing, "Don't worry." She was a dangerous yet charming antagonist. My face flushed, and I quickly lowered my head, drinking water to hide my embarrassment. David Mitchell, a professional lawyer, was equally articulate in private, and Alexander Collins was no less impressive. Would Emily Turner be interested in David Mitchell? I secretly wondered. I knew very well that David Mitchell perfectly matched Emily Turner's aesthetic. The dinner lasted nearly 3 hours, filled with light-hearted conversation and hardly any awkward moments. In the end, Alexander Collins paid the bill. As we were leaving, Emily Turner stood at the restaurant entrance, waving goodbye to David Mitchell and me.
Do your best, she said to David Mitchell, reaching out to pat his shoulder.
I quickly stepped between them, gently high-fiving her raised hand. She seemed a bit surprised. Just then, Alexander Collins returned from paying the bill, and Emily Turner quickly adjusted, leaning softly against him and playfully cuddling. Throughout the evening, she had maintained a perfect balance of engaging conversation with David Mitchell, without crossing any boundaries. It was a flawless performance. Yet, an inexplicable sense of unease rose within me. Maybe it was because I knew her too well. As we walked away, I took out a mirror to touch up my lipstick. In the reflection, I saw them still standing at the restaurant entrance, sweetly embracing. Emily Turner's face rested on Alexander Collins' shoulder, gazing thoughtfully in our direction. Would everything go smoothly? I was preoccupied with these thoughts on the way home. David Mitchell noticed and, once we got home, turned to me, wrapping one arm around my shoulders and the other around my waist, pulling me close.
What are you thinking about? His slightly damp lips traced the contours of my face, down to my ear.
Through the thin layers of our clothes, I could feel the heat of his chest.
Do you think I'm not good enough for you? You're so wonderful.
Don't worry, someone like that isn't my type.
My heart sank. He lowered his head, kissing my neck and moving down to my chest. I wrapped my arms tightly around his neck, responding to him passionately. Today, both of them told me not to worry. But I was defenseless, no match for Emily Turner. My heart tightened, and a cloud of anxiety loomed over me. The unease wouldn't go away. I don't know if it was just my imagination, but after that day, it seemed like David Mitchell started working late more often. His job had always been demanding, and the pressure was immense. I began frequently checking David's discarded shirts, meticulously searching for any stray long hairs, or burying my face in his clothes, inhaling deeply to detect any unfamiliar scents. Even more disturbingly, I started subtly inquiring about David's whereabouts. At first, he patiently explained, but later, he would just frown and remain silent. He might still love me, but he certainly didn't like me as much anymore. Several times, I saw his car parked downstairs from the window. He would just sit there, smoking, the light flickering, reluctant to come up. Emily Turner still occasionally invited me out. We shopped, got our nails done, all on Alexander Collins' card. During this time, Alexander would occasionally call. Emily would either be in the middle of a shopping spree or watching the manicurist apply nail polish, responding with vague ahas.
Have you found a new target?
Guess.
Her tone was playful, coquettish, making one both love and hate her. David and I were getting married this year. No matter how unscrupulous she was, she wouldn't go after her friend's fiancé, right? I thought, feeling a genuine sympathy for Alexander Collins. Her interest often came quickly and left just as fast. Falling for someone like Emily Turner, no matter how capable the man, he would be at her mercy, played like a puppet. She had no real feelings, only a sense of victory and defeat. And when it comes to love, the one who falls first always loses. The clock on the wall pointed to 1:30 a.m. There was a faint click from the living room as the door finally opened.
Where have you been?
Had a few drinks with a client. Don't be like this, I'm under a lot of pressure.
The words of concern I had prepared got stuck in my throat. I paused, realizing I had been too aggressive.
I'm sorry.
I quickly ran over to take his suit. David went straight to the bathroom to shower. He always said he was tired. It had been a long time since we had been intimate. I patted the dust off his suit, intending to iron it, when I suddenly froze. Carefully, I turned over the narrow lapel and slowly pulled out a long, chestnut-colored curl.
My mind exploded, and I felt a chill run through me. This color was rare.
Emily Turner had just sent me a selfie a few days ago, showing off her new hair color, saying it made her look fairer and inviting me to get the same style. In the photo, her hair was this exact color, with the same curl and length.
Was it because if I dyed my hair the same, no one would notice if she left any behind?
Emily Turner was still the same Emily Turner. She had never changed. The story's direction was exactly what I had feared. This realization made me both happy and sad. The next few days passed in a blur. I was distracted at work several times, not even noticing when Alexander Collins stood in front of me.
Has Emily been to your place these past few days? Is she feeling down?
I looked up at him, dazed. He was dressed in a well-fitted suit, his hair meticulously groomed, a far cry from the youthful image he had during our meal. He had reverted to being the boss's boss, the superior's superior. But there was something subtly different from before. At least now, he would come to me because I was Emily Turner's friend. We were both unfortunate souls, losers in the game of love. I shook my head at him. He sighed lightly and was about to leave when I grabbed the hem of his jacket. I heard my own voice, both faint and deafening.
Do you want to grab a drink later?
I knew I was intoxicated, and quite heavily so. I couldn't help but ramble on about my emotional journey over the past period. How men could be so detestable and hypocritical, and how worthless friendship could be. I had a rough idea of the reason behind it. David Mitchell had been working hard, striving earnestly in both his career and love life. Perhaps he did think I was somewhat unworthy of him, especially when compared to Emily Turner. Alcohol numbed my nerves, and I didn't know how many times I repeated the same complaints. Until Alexander Collins couldn't take it anymore and reached out to help me up.
I turned my head and vomited on the ground, using the last bit of my clarity to avoid throwing up on him.
Alexander hesitated for a moment but eventually lifted my limp body onto his shoulder, hailed a cab, and headed to the nearest hotel. He didn't know where I lived and even asked the driver to buy a bottle of water for me to rinse my mouth. I stumbled out of the car, nearly collapsing with him at the hotel entrance. The revolving doors of the upscale hotel were resplendent, the bright lights piercing my eyes, bringing a sliver of clarity to my muddled mind.
Do you hate me?
Fate is truly strange. He was once someone I could never reach, yet now he was patiently listening to my ramblings at a hotel entrance. If it were just up to me, I could never have achieved this. His beautiful model girlfriend alone would have left me at a loss. Perhaps I should thank Emily Turner. In the chilly night breeze, I saw him gently shaking his head. My eyes welled up uncontrollably, and I couldn't hold back. I could only look at him through my blurred vision.
David Mitchell.
I raised my head, pouting my lips like a ripe cherry, waiting to be picked. I called someone else's name. I was still afraid that saying those 3 words would make everything irreparable. Another gust of wind blew, a bit cold. In the dark night, under the crescent moon, I stubbornly held this pose, unmoving. I waited. I waited for a long time. Finally, a light kiss landed on my lips, a gentle peck. Like a dragonfly skimming the water. It quickly retreated. I soon realized it was a friendly, almost ceremonial kiss. My eyelashes fluttered. Tears fell. After careful consideration, I decided to seize the moment and confess.
Actually, I'm in a relationship and planning to get married this year.
What? Who is it? When did you start dating? Why didn't I know?
Seeing my sheepish smile, she quickly understood, narrowing her eyes and gritting her teeth.
Well, you deliberately kept it from me. You've got some nerve.
Emily Turner snorted, then swiftly reached out to tickle my side.
No excuses. My birthday is next month. Bring him along. Big sister Emily will give him a thorough check.
I squealed, unable to resist her tickling, and nodded in agreement. Only then did she let me go, still huffing.
What happened next was straightforward, everything fell into place naturally. I couldn't waste any opportunity and quickly took Alexander Collins to get our marriage license. We signed a prenuptial agreement stating that the unfaithful party would leave with nothing. Both Alexander and I needed that sense of security. This relationship had cost me too much effort, and I needed a definitive conclusion. Emily Turner still hadn't married. She continued to move from one man to another, enjoying the thrill of the hunt. Was she still chasing victory? I didn't know. I had completely lost interest in knowing. After scrolling through her social media for a while, I turned off the screen. That night, David Mitchell seemed to have figured something out and deleted all my contact information. I knew it wasn't out of guilt but because he felt ashamed. As for Emily Turner, I guessed Alexander Collins had already had a private talk with her. Neither of them contacted me again.
I wouldn't block Emily Turner because I occasionally found amusement in her social media updates. After all, she had taught me a lot. I was grateful to her.
The room was warm enough, and the cold wind outside became gentle as it reached here. I turned to carefully observe Alexander Collins's sleeping face. He breathed evenly, his expression peaceful and content. My gaze, almost greedy, swept over his smooth forehead, straight nose, rosy lips, and finally rested on the hollow of his collarbone. He was no longer my superior's superior, nor my boss's boss. From the first moment I saw this man, I knew I shouldn't have him, yet I desired him deeply. I gently stroked his brow bone, then slid my hand to the back of his head, feeling his soft, slightly damp hair in my palm. My heart surged with emotion, and satisfaction nearly overflowed. Did I love David Mitchell? Maybe a little. But he was too short enough that I could reach him with just a slight tiptoe. What I always wanted were the stars in the sky. At that time, Alexander Collins was successful in his career, with a beautiful girlfriend, while I was just an assistant's assistant, unable to even touch the hem of his garment. I couldn't win. There was an invisible yet palpable thick wall between us. My life was supposed to stay in the shadows, as an insignificant speck of dust, gazing up at this star from afar. In the game of love, I was the first to fall, and the one who falls first is always the loser. Fortunately, I had an excellent hunter. Since childhood, I was always inferior to her, neither as beautiful nor as smart. But she was strong, combative, and curious about everything she couldn't have. David Mitchell was definitely her type. But I had to keep David Mitchell hidden, pretending he was important, then pretending to accidentally let her discover him. I had to make her see but not touch, make her itch with curiosity and frustration. Emily Turner couldn't stand it. How could she allow a timid, clumsy leaf to possess something she had never seen before? Luckily, I knew my hunter well enough. Though I couldn't be a hunter, I could be a fisherman, just waiting to scoop up the wounded prey that had been shot down, bringing it ashore and taking good care of it. This was my fallen star. As if sensing my lingering gaze even in his sleep, Alexander Collins struggled to open his eyes, then closed them again, drowsily murmuring,
Aren't you sleeping?
Yes.
I replied, snuggling under the covers and gently cradling his head in my arms.
Sleep.
Sleep, my star. Shine bright.
In the deep night sky, stars twinkled, and the soft moonlight spilled through the window onto the light-colored bedspread. Smiling, I closed my eyes. Tonight would be another good night's sleep.